question is, like, when you got to the league, who's the first person to, like, bust your ass?
Man, my first game was against Melo.
You know. Welcome back to Just the Facts, y'all. My name is Jimmy, and today we're going to be taking a dive into our second ever Who's the First Player to Bust Yo series here on our channel. If you didn't know, I made a first one that included Allen Iverson getting his busted by Kevin Johnson. Feel free to check that out, but make sure you like and subscribe if you enjoy this content and want more. But without further ado, let's get to talking about rookie Kevin Durant getting his busted by prime Carmelo Anthony. Knowing what we know now, KD and Melo are pretty much two of the best scorers, not only of this generation, but of all time. Hopefully KD comes back fully healthy in 2021, and hopefully he's at least most of what he was before his devastating Achilles injury in the finals last June. And despite what you think about KD, he is a two-time finals MVP, four-time scoring champ, and one-time MVP and 10-time All-Star. And like I said, one of the greatest scorers of all time. But all this had to start somewhere, right? Well, flashback to 2007 at his freshman season at Texas, which was a historic one statistically, as he was one of the most memorable freshmen in recent history, as he averaged 26 points and 11 rebounds per game. Heading into the NBA a year later, the expectation for him to become a great player had risen, as he went number 2 overall to the Seattle Supersonics. Coming into the matchup versus Carmelo Anthony in his first ever NBA game, the Supersonics were in rebuild mode and had a pretty terrible roster, while the Nuggets, on the other hand, were a good playoff team looking to take the next jump, that being title contenders. The Nuggets had just acquired Allen Iverson during the previous season, which means this was the first full season to really evaluate the pairing of the two highest volume players in the league at the time, besides Kobe, of course. So the Nuggets definitely had high expectations heading into that 2008 season. Carmelo Anthony just came off a career high year in points at 28.9 points per game and solidified himself as a bona fide rising superstar. The Supersonics had just come off a bad 31-51 season, and that forced them to trade Ray Allen and Rashard Lewis and start over. They were looking for their next star, which turned out to be Kevin Durant, of course, but the star in the meantime is Carmelo Anthony. On to Kevin Durant's debut. Carmelo was doing his usual Carmelo Anthony things, as he scored a quick 11 points in the first quarter on 4-6 shooting. He was getting to his spot in the mid-range. He was backing guys down in the post by using his physicality, and it seemed like he was on his way to an absolute monster night. KD, on the other hand, as expected by a rookie in the season opener, struggled in the first quarter, going 1 for 5 with only 3 points. As the game went on, it was more of the same for Melo, as KD even started to guard him a bit more. When asked on the Knuckleheads podcast with Quentin Richardson and Darius Miles why Melo was so tough to guard, KD said,
Melo just physical, he'll duck you in the paint, hit you with the shoulder, and then he'll take you out, jab, pull over top of you, so you want to be physical, but you don't. Like, he just had you thinking too much on D, and
it was evident that Melo was just too skilled, too big, too experienced for rookie KD, as he was a kid in the candy shop getting anything he wanted with ease, scoring 11 points in the third. As the game went on, it was obvious that the Nuggets were so much better than the Supersonics that Melo took his foot off the gas, taking only 3 shots in the fourth. But at the end of the night, Carmelo Anthony finished with 32 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists on 48% shooting from the field, while Kevin Durant finished with only 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 1 assist, shooting 31% from the field. KD definitely showed flashes in his debut, but rookies tend to struggle with efficiency, and Kevin fell victim to that as well. But as we know, that would definitely not be the story of things to come for him. In fact, this story isn't over yet, as later that season, KD and the Supersonics had an absolute instant classic versus that same Nuggets team led by Melo. On April 6, Carmelo and KD combined for 75 points as they played a double overtime thriller. It was a high-scoring back-and-forth game that was quite frankly a little bit before its time. It was all KD in the first half, scoring 18 points. He was getting to his spots in the mid-range, getting to the basket with ease, hitting threes, as well as setting up his teammates, finishing with 9 assists. It seemed as if KD would outshine Melo, but as soon as the second half started, Melo turned it up a notch and put in 18 points on 8 for 14 shooting, including hitting multiple jumpers while Kevin was guarding him. And it seemed like the Nuggets run would be too much for KD and the Sonics to overcome, but with 25 seconds remaining in regulation, the Sonics were down 3, but not for long, as KD off an inbounds pass drills a 3 that would pretty much send it to overtime, as Melo missed the game-winning shot. In the overtime, Carmelo hit back-to-back mid-range jumpers over KD, and again, it seemed like the Nuggets would pull away, but that was not the case, as Melo for some reason only took 2 more shots in both overtimes combined. KD again hits a huge 3 at the top of the key to tie the game at 135, but there are still 2 seconds remaining left for Melo or even AI to get the game-winning shot. Neither of those guys even touched the ball, as Kenyon Martin shoots this shot. and therefore double OT. Long story short, the Sonics pulled out a W as they beat the Nuggets 151 to 147 in double overtime, and the player of the game wasn't KD, wasn't Melo, wasn't AI, but actually Jeff Green, as he scored 22 points in the second half alone, finishing with 35 points. KD finished with 37 and Melo finished with 38, so it was safe to say that KD got his quote-unquote revenge quickly. But for the rest of that season, KD and the Supersonics experienced more losses, a lot more losses, finishing with an abysmal 20 wins that led them to the 4th overall pick, who became his running mate for the next 8 years, Russell Westbrook. And it also led to the relocation of the Seattle franchise to Oklahoma City. Melo and the Nuggets, on the other hand, went 50 and 32 that season, ending in disappointing fashion, getting swept by the Lakers in the first round, who became the eventual Western Conference champions. As we know, Kevin Durant and Carmelo Anthony would go on to become two of the best scorers ever. Unfortunately, we never saw these two go head-to-head in a playoff series, but we did see them go head-to-head literally a couple years ago while Melo was on the Thunder and KD was on the Warriors, but that was a bunch of nothing going on there. I really wish there was more of a story that came full circle with these two guys, but unfortunately we don't. Now, if I were to rate this on a scale of 1 to 10 of how bad Kevin Durant got his busted by Melo, I would rate it about a 4 or 5. It wasn't that bad considering the fact that KD didn't guard Melo as much, the fact that KD had a decent game himself, and also for the fact that KD got busted by a guy who was in his prime as a superstar in Carmelo Anthony, and that coupled with the fact that he got somewhat of revenge later his rookie season. So it's safe to say that this moment wasn't as bad for KD as it is for some other guys who are going to be on this list later on. As for a quick rating, AI getting his busted by Kevin Johnson, I would rate that one a 7. Kevin Johnson at that point was out of his prime and he was a shell of himself due to injuries, and KJ absolutely gave AI the business, so that moment was definitely worse for AI. With that being said, let me know which NBA star or former star you want me to get onto next in the Who is the First Player to Bust Yo series. Comment down below and I'll do it. But anyways, y'all, this is Jimmy from Just the Facts, and I'm signing out. Peace.